Okay, welcome officially everyone who's here joining us live. Oh, it's beautiful to see so many women. And welcome also if you're listening into the recording. Let's just imagine that we're all here together outside of space and time for this event, which is called Bringing Ourselves Home, with a tagline of self-care as a radical act for the healing of our world. Or there was another one, self-care as a gift to collective evolution as women. Self-care as a gift to collective evolution as women. So yeah, it's a complete joy to be with you here this afternoon, to be with you too, Jules. If anyone's having any tech challenges, then we have the wonderful Catherine here behind the scenes who's going to be helping you by answering your questions in the chat box. Yeah, and I want to start by saying thank you for making the time for this for yourself. You know, the way we're living on our earth isn't sustainable. That's what we're going to be talking about a lot today. And you setting aside this time, this precious hour of self-care, is paving the new way. So thank you so much. Yeah, make yourselves comfortable. We'll be gathered probably for about an hour, but when Jules and I start talking, we really start talking, so it might trickle over to maybe 10 past, quarter past, but we'll get the main body in the first hour. So I'm going to start with an overview of the kind of territory that we're going to explore today. We're looking at this topic of women and radical self-care, what gets in the way of our self-care, and portals and doorways and gateways to help us to bring ourselves into the kind of self-care which is going to create the kind of world that we want for future generations. This is for us and for the world. We're going to start with a conversation about this, where I'll be asking Jules all kinds of questions, all the questions I've ever wanted to ask her about this. And then Jules is going to take us into an embodied experience of the kind of wisdom that can come through when women gather together in self-care experiences like this, like we're doing right now, through a drum journey, right, Jules? Yep. And then we're going to talk about some of the offerings that Jules gives to help to create this kind of self-care space for women. One of them being Initiation, which is a year-long program for women, which the reason why I'm here hosting this is because Initiation completely transformed my life. So I can't wait to tell you about it. We're going to explore what happens on Initiation, the kind of process it is, and just how beautiful it is. And then we'll have time at the end for Q&A. Just going to see if I can mute. Sounds like there's some background noise going on. So if anyone's joined, you could make sure you're on mute. That would be awesome. Helps me stay
not on
focused.
Mute. See that, yeah. Charlotte, could you just press your mute button, love?
I will try and find it.
So it should be in the bottom left-hand corner. Oh, there we go. I've got it. I've got you. I've got your back, Charlotte. Yeah, and then we're going to have some open time for Q&A, where you can bring any question that you have for Jules, and she is here to support you and guide you and help you. So, okay, with no further ado, I want to introduce Jules, who has been a teacher and a guide and a mentor for me for many years now. She has 3 decades, many of you know this, she has 3 decades of experience of holding incredibly transformational crucibles, alchemical containers for women, for couples. I'm on her couples year-long training at the moment. It's completely transforming my relationship. For people who are going through thresholds in their life. She blends together a very unique blend of our indigenous earth-based spirituality with sacred ecology, with conscious relationship and sacred sexuality in this gorgeous mush that is the beauty that she brings to the world at Earth Heart. And she's a deeply trusted teacher for many, including me and Jules. I've got tears in my eyes now. I'm just so grateful to be here with you, and thank you for giving us this time.
Oh, well, thank you for platforming it, Sophie. It's great. I love having conversations with you, and we always run over time because we just get lost in the juice of it all. So yeah, excited to get going.
Good. Great. So before we dive in, I want to welcome all that you might be bringing, all the different women that are gathered here. Perhaps you felt called to come to this conversation because you can see yourself overgiving and getting overwhelmed and reaching that place of burnout, and you know something needs to change. You might be coming here through the lens of motherhood and wanting to create some time for you so that perhaps you can give more to your children. Perhaps your relationship is maybe trapping you, or it doesn't feel like it's flowing, and you know that if you gave yourself more, then you'd be able to give more to that relationship. Perhaps there is trauma from your past that you're bringing here that you know is sabotaging something in your life, and you'd love some space to heal that. Or perhaps you've been to a festival workshop with Jewels, and you're like, oh, I like this woman. Let's check out some more. So whatever it is that you're bringing here, it's completely welcome, and you have a seat. You have a seat here in this circle. So Jules, let's begin with this conversation about radical self-care and why it's so important for women in the world today. Let's launch in with, can you just tell me why this is your passion? Why have you been running these initiation programs for so long? Why do you do this?
Yeah, okay, so here we go. So self-care, I mean, it's the big thing that's always kind of women are talking about. And I guess, I went on my own journey with that many years ago, spending all my life in this kind of superwoman paradigm about out there trying to save the world and do all of that. And actually not in any way, I was out there preaching about sustainability and about how the cycles of nature are so important and about how we need to honor all of this. And I wasn't honoring my own body wasn't a sustainable ecosystem. I was just on complete burnout. I was just running around like a lunatic, trying to do all of this stuff out there, be everything to everyone. And then, of course, I hit my mid-40s and completely crashed and realized that I couldn't continue like this. And what I saw was that there's kind of two ways that we can there's two ways that we can operate. Either we do what I just described, which is not sustainable, or we recognize and get into a kind of mirrored relationship with nature and understand that winter in us, in our cyclical nature, is as important as summer. But we've kind of been taught to sort of live in the sort of the spring and the summer of ourselves, if you like, in our life. It's like our culture doesn't recognize that the sort of autumn and winter is important. In fact, we can even see that in farming. We now try to sort of manipulate and control the farming world globally to say, no, we can just produce the whole time. We can produce, let's not worry about the rest time because that's inefficient. So there's this whole focus on efficiency rather than actually sustainability. And sustainability has to begin within our own bodies, within our own psyche, within our own energy system. And if we aren't resourced, if we're not fed well, if we're not rested well, if we haven't taken that time to reflect and go in and look at our own inner kind of landscape, we're so under-resourced to be there for anybody else or be there in the world effectively. So it kind of feels like an oxymoron because women say, oh, but I haven't got time to self-care. I've got 4 kids, I've got a job, I've got a partner, I've got, all this stuff going on. It's all very well saying sit on the sofa and self-care, but I simply don't have the time. And what I want to say is it's like we don't have the time not to. It's like we cannot any longer run the guilt tape, around, oh, well, if I sit on the sofa, I feel a little bit guilty and really I should be doing something. And I tell everyone I'm busy because then I don't have to feel the guilt. But actually, we have to self-care because what's missing in our world is the care. And the feminine aspect in all of us, men and women, is the quality of care and nurturing and the quality of honoring and a sense of the sacred. And that's what's missing in our world. And we're out there in the kind of practical doing of it all, but we're not listening to nature. We're not listening to our bodies. We're just kind of missing this whole piece of this preciousness of slowing down, of stillness, of allowing the seed in the ground to germinate. We're not allowing ourselves to sort of get in the ground and germinate. And when that seed is germinating, it's in the stillness, it's in the spaciousness of nothing. It knows it's going to be a mighty oak one day, but it's not busy trying to push through the soil before it's ready. It's just allowing itself almost to receive the nourishment from the compost that's in the earth. And that's the piece that we're missing. So, you know, my own journey around that is kind of what's prompted me to see that I see so many women in the same paradigm. I'm like, right, we got to do something about this. And this is how initiation was birthed, really, from seeing that need and wanting to offer something that tends to it, really.
Also, something I love about your approach is you're able to build this bridge really well between the lack of self-care that's happening within women and what's happening in our world. If we look at Extinction Rebellion, for example, what's just happening, could you talk about that, like the connection between women taking care of them, like women having a bubble bath and saving the earth? Like, there's a bridge there, and it's really about why self-care is so important right now in this time on our earth.
Yeah, because we're feeling the lack. We're feeling the lack anywhere. We're feeling the poverty, and the poverty in every sense of the word. We're feeling the poverty in our connections, in our support structures, in our food resources, in the governmental systems, in the actual poverty that's going on. So the poverty is everywhere. And what I know for myself and what I bring in this work is, once we put our feet on the grass, once we put our feet in the land, once we sit under a tree, once we open ourselves to another woman, once we allow that inner landscape, the kind of underbelly of us, that soft, furry, tender underbelly, to have some space and to feel the ground under us, to spend time just noticing what birds are moving around, you know, what life is, what abundance of life is around us. It nourishes our soul. It nourishes a place in us that doesn't get touched by any amount of doing or any amount of reading a book or any amount of sort of, you know, all of those activities that we get busy with. It's like a kind of soul nourishment that is called for. And that happens in those moments where we're sitting in the bath. You know, we haven't got the phone and we haven't got the kids around us, maybe for just 5 seconds or 10 minutes if we're lucky. And we just close our eyes and there's just that moment to kind of go, oh, how do I feel? How do I actually feel? You know, in those moments, even if we can only grab a few of them and we sort of build that muscle, they feed something in us that is deeper and goes beyond the kind of functionality of our daily life. And that moment when we sit on the ground, like maybe we've gone to the park, or maybe we're just hanging out at a festival, or maybe we're walking to work and we're sitting on a bench waiting for a bus, or, you know, sitting at the traffic lights, and suddenly we become aware of something that's bigger than this tiny little world we operate in of kind of, oh, I've just got to get through the day and I've got to pick up the kids up at 3 and I've got to do this and I've got to do that and and there's just this moment. And if we can catch those moments and just let them kind of open up, something else can enter that isn't work for us. It's something that we can receive. And in that receiving, all we've really got to do is open to it. And the awareness that those moments are being offered to us all the time, actually. And can we just allow them? And to allow them, we have to get past the guilt stories, and we have to get past the kind of the addictive nature of our thinking cycles, you know, where we just get so lost in that, I got to do that, and to sort of those, it's like life comes in, spirit comes in and goes, here, this moment. Just take this little moment. You can go back to all the stuff afterwards. Just take this moment and just take a breath and just receive just the absolute majesty of this life, the absolute miracle of this moment of a bird landing on the bonnet of my car, or this rose that just is falling in front of the pavement and is asking me to stop. You know, it's those moments.
Sorry, I'm not sure why we're getting an echo, Jules. I'm just trying to check out why.
No, someone called Anna Ling.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, sorry to disrupt. Naughty Zoom. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was really with you. I've been taking several of those breaths as I'm hearing you talking. Like, oh, because it feels like such sweet permission, you know, like, oh, okay. And what I love about what you're pointing to is you're not making self-care another thing on the to-do list. Because I find myself doing that. I find myself rushing to meditate, rushing to do yoga. I'm like, why am I stressing myself out? And what you're saying is that there are these small moments where we can enter into a moment of self-care, and these all build upon each other incrementally to create a kind of ground of self-care underneath us, which I feel my body relaxing as you're saying that.
Yeah, and this idea that we have, it's like we try to self-care from the same place of the exhaustion, from the place of all the doing and the busyness of our life. But it's like the self-care is held within something deeper than our individual experience. It's held within the wider context of this mystery of life, of our soul's remembering. Because otherwise we're trying to fix the problem from within the problem. And like you say, it's just another thing on the to-do list. Oh, I've got 5 minutes to self-care. I must make sure I do that. You know, and lo and behold, it doesn't feel rejuvenating. You know, and self-care doesn't feel so rejuvenating if while we're doing it, we're feeling guilty. You know, it's like we're just sort of in this little hamster wheel. So even if we can only grace ourselves with 4 minutes or 30 seconds, those 30 seconds count for something. You know, and so often when we talk about self-care, someone suggests some huge, big thing that we have to do. And then we're like, well, I just feel overwhelmed and I can't commit to that, so I'm a failure. But what I'm pointing to is there are things that are presenting themselves that are tiny in the amount of time they take, but the proportion to what is replenished in us is vast, is absolutely vast.
I know that you touched this vastness a lot yourself recently on this vision quest that you've just come back from. And I'm just looking at our notes that we put together before this call, and there's a story about a bat. Can you tell us about the bat?
So, well, it's a long story, but I know we've got loads of time. But we were sent out one night to meet our death. So we were sent, you know, and I built a fire and I made a bed, and we were up in the mountains in Scotland, up in the hills in Scotland. And I made this bed, and I said, I'm just going to sit by the fire for the night and contemplate my death. And the invitation had been to imagine that you really were dying that night, and to consider what is important to me, what is actually really important to me, who in my life matters to me, what in my life matters to me. And, you know, it wasn't comfortable actually. And I was sort of going through the list of all the people I knew and all my family. And I was like, okay. And it was about, I think, I don't know what, well, I think at about 1:15, I looked at my phone because I wanted to see what the time was. And a text had come in from my mum, who rarely texts me, saying that my aunt had just died unexpectedly. And it was like, whoa, okay, here it is. And, you know, I felt so connected to my ancestral line. And obviously I'd just been thinking about my mum. And then I was sitting there, and then this bat started circling above me around this fire. And then I remembered what bats are about. Bats are a symbol of like ritualistic rebirth. That's what they symbolize. And I was like, oh, and I got really scared in this moment. I was like, oh no, this is really happening, because, you know, there's always that part of me that thinks, oh, I'm going to go on this vision quest, and it's all going to be really deep and meaningful, and these amazing things are going to happen. And then I sit by the fire and I'm like, nothing spiritual's happening. I'm a complete fraud. I'm a total fake. How am I going to go back with the shame of like no story? And, you know, and sure enough, there it was. And I just opened myself to this. And And it was really powerful. And what that whole process of contemplating my death brought me was this deep gratitude for what I have in my life. And actually I came back like, right, that's it. I've got to do a whole nother level of decluttering my physical possessions. You know, how do I want to spend my hours and days? You know, what am I busy in dramas about? What am I obsessing about and getting so pulled away from, when actually there's this deeper calling as I move into, you know, because the whole quest was about moving into eldership. And I sort of signed up to the course thinking, yeah, right. I mean, no, you know, trainer wheels fully in place. How do I step into eldership? But actually I am getting older, you know, I'm moving past the menopause. There's a responsibility I feel to step into that place. And how do I do that? And I came back feeling really inspired, and sort of my soul was fed in terms of like a pathway of how to do that, which was about this deep listening, which was about not being afraid, you know, not apologizing anymore for who we are as women, not apologizing, not sort of making ourselves smaller, not saying, oh, well, maybe next week. But actually, what about now? It's like, it's all here right now. And I've heard teachers say that so many times in my life, but it was like I got a real visceral, embodied kind of awakening to that. And I got up in the morning and I just felt so different about myself. And I think that was when I messaged you and said, we need to do a call. We need to do a call. We need to get the initiation. We need to get the women in. I feel so passionate to support women who are wanting to make these movements, but almost kind of not really quite sure where to go or how to do that. You know, and I know so deeply the power of circle, of what happens when we gather as women, because that's what happened when I was in Scotland. It was, even though I was on my own that night, I was held by this circle, and it gave me the courage. It gave me the strength.
I'd really like to segue into that, actually. Thank you for paving the way for that. Often, for us to be able to actually get the momentum of self-care going, we need to put ourselves in situations where we're with other women who are also wanting to make that move. For me, it's impossible otherwise. Like, I have to be with other women, and to be with other women requires trust. Often because of our, you know, the heritage we have behind us, there isn't necessarily trust between us as women. So I know this is a big piece of the work you do as well, but to sort of begin to call us right now into another level of being in circle together, and also to segue us into this conversation, I know you have a poem that you wanted to read.
I do. So this poem was written by Karen, who we run the women's work together, and this poem came out of the initiation experience. So it just feels like a lovely way to maybe give women a bit of a transmission of the quality of what we are sitting within. It's called The Woman's Hearth. The women gather and draw close around the fire. With rapt attention, they talk and they listen. They have a language all of their own, a unique dialect of sighs and signs rarely spoken in these times, or heard by the ears of others or in the light of the day. They speak of life and death, of what has been lost, forsaken and dispossessed, kinships, ancestors, wildness and belonging to the land. They share visions, destinies and dreamings and the forgotten mysteries of the moon. And they share time, as they share, time distorts, and as the earth spins more slowly on its axis, and as they sit and they talk and they talk and they sit, seeing inward, suspended in timeless space, held by a spiral existence. And the potency of their sharing, the absoluteness of their passion and pain, dignity and disgrace, their ecstasy, emptiness, sorrow and joy are distilled between silence and laughter, and longing and tender heartfelt care. They howl and sing and bleed and weep in the truth of their being and becoming. With fearless presence and devotion, they sift through the sea drift of their hearts. Armors dissolve, masks melt, knots loosen and unravel, and they spin a golden lace work reality. as beautiful as the lines of their faces. It is strange and wondrous alchemy of body, wisdom, and soul song. The women weave their rainbow essence in a new paradigm of archetypes and deities, ethereal and manifest. And what was once to be dead is brought to life. What lay sleeping is awoken in themselves and in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
I wish we could have heard it in Karen's broad,
Gorgeous
Geordie accent.
I was thinking that.
As women weave their rainbow essence. That would have been great.
I could hear her in it. It was so lovely every time I read it.
Yeah. So for me, that poem, it really speaks beautifully to how we're not broken. We're not something that's broken and needs to be fixed. Which is like, thank for that, because the world would like to project that story quite loudly, and we're actually, it's more a process of being disconnected from the roots of who we are and our togetherness. And one of the things I love most about your teachings is how you talk about women as uprooted root vegetables. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the uprooted vegetables. So yeah, I mean, I think because of how we've all been, because of the way our culture has evolved and what I would call deep ancestral time, women have been trained to be reliant on man. That's the way the kind of system has worked. And in that, it's like we're uprooted vegetables held at the hand of man, taught that without man we're nothing. I mean, it was only 200 years ago, 100 years ago, that to be out of wedlock and a woman on her own, let alone with a child, would have just been, you were outcast. So we've been in this paradigm where we seem to have needed man to survive. And in that, our roots are not in the ground. It's like our wombs and our bodies and our sexuality is our life force connection. It's like our umbilical cord to our safety, to our nourishment, to our wisdom, to our aliveness, to all of it. And if you think, when a plant is uprooted, it doesn't have any of that. It's completely at the mercy of the hand that is holding it. And this is what's happened to women. So the journey is to trust, letting go of the hand that we seem to be so dependent of, and actually putting that taproot, that umbilical cord, back into the earth, so that we can reawaken our wisdom and our sexual energy and our aliveness and our power, and receive holding. To receive holding, that is where the source needs to come from. It's like putting ourselves, getting that taproot right into the spring that's under the earth and just drinking from her. And like you say, that's not a journey of brokenness needing to be repaired. It's like we have everything. It's just about putting our roots back into the earth. That's all we really need to do. The rest kind of takes care of itself. And then in terms of the women and how much we need them, I mean, the other way that the system has trained all of us, men and women, is to divide, separate, and compete. And women have, that's a great way to disempower women, is to get us to compete with each other. So who's more beautiful, who's got more this, that, or whatever. And then we'll want to make sure that we betray each other, annihilate each other, be devious and manipulative with each other, and all of that. So it was genius. But actually, we can't make these changes unless we come together. I just don't see how that can happen. And you think about the power of what happens even in our modern culture. What happens when women get together? I mean, they're a force of nature. There's quotes made about it. Oh my God, the pack of women are coming. The women are coming. Even the women out. It's like, whoa, the women are coming, because it's like we just have this incredible. It's like more than the sum of the parts happens when women come together. And that is why the most of the work I do is done within circle rather than one-to-one. I mean, one-to-one is sometimes really important, and it sort of needs to be there as well. But without that circle, no wolf on her own can survive. She needs the pack. She needs the pack to survive. And we're the same. Now, that all sounds all lovely and rosy in the rainbow reality, but actually, because of everything that's happened in our deep ancestral time, we don't trust each other because there has been so much betrayal. You know, and whether that's from men, whether that's from just the crucifixion of women during the witch burnings, you know, whatever the reason, there's plenty of evidence for us in our fear bodies, in our uprooted state, to go, I'm not going to trust women. They did me over, and they're going to do me over again. And we're still not out of that. We do each other over all the time. But within a circle that's held with agreements and tools and practices and a depth of trust and safety, we can begin to start really knowing what it's like to feel like you've got a bunch of sisters who've got your back, and they will not betray you no matter what, and they will not leave you no matter what you do. That gives us incredible courage to speak out and say what has, you know, what the truth that we need to speak. That we don't know how to speak because we're going to get shot down.
I want to come back to this because I want to talk about my wolf pack from initiation. But before I do, I just want to ask about, you know, you're talking about putting the roots back, you know, us as root vegetables with our roots dangling. What does it actually mean to get our roots back in the earth? What does that look like in reality?
Yeah. So there's a few strands to that. One is literally spending time in nature in specific ways, which is all the kind of things we learn on initiation and the other work that we do, but you know, ways of being with nature so that we can really start to feel how she is pulling us down. And the other thing is about coming into relationship with women. And the third strand is about connecting to our bodies, because our bodies is where the wisdom is held. Our bodies is telling the story. Our bodies is trying to show us all the time what we need to see. And one of the key aspects to being in our bodies is being connected to our cyclical nature, being connected to the cycles that are happening in us, whether we kind of know anything about that or not, whether we think that's all a bit woo-woo. It's like cyclical nature is happening in us through our menstrual cycle, for one thing. You know, and even if we're no longer bleeding, our cyclical nature is still happening within us. And by allowing ourselves to let ourselves follow that cyclical nature rather than try to control and dominate that cyclical nature, we already start to feel a different rhythm of resourced energy in us. And when we are with, I mean, you know how you might remember that when you were a student, say when you were younger and you were living in a shared house with women, how women started, like their cycles started to sort of unify together. And Tanya, could you just press mute? Thank you. Yeah, so, you know, women would start to bleed together. That was like a kind of a thing, you know, and it's that there's something that in this cyclical nature that isn't just showing us something about our individual selves, but it's actually plugging us into something in the collective etheric field, in the mystery, in these cycles that are happening outside of us. And we can be mirrors for each other in that, and we can support each other in that, in being able to listen deeply enough to start noticing and becoming aware of what is happening in our own bodies. Because the body is where we're going to create the safety. The body is holding the trauma for sure. And it's held in our psyches, it's held in our wombs, it's held in our sexuality. But through the body, we can start to release some of that. That goes deeper than a kind of talking therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely it does. I'd like us to share a couple of stories for what this really looks like, you know, in real life. And I'd like to start with mine, because I think I was a classic example of a woman that was an uprooted vegetable in the hands of a man, a lovely man, but completely disconnected from other women. And I was in a yoga school that was really quite a cult, which was very masculine driven, and it had actually deliberately severed me from my relationships with other women. And I had pictures of sort of male gurus and saints all around my bedroom, and it was all, my practice was very masculine. And I ended up in a relationship with a man, and my sexuality shut down. Just did not want to have sex, had zero interest in having sex, and I was a young, like 32-year-old woman at the time, in the prime of my life. And so I decided to come on initiation, because I felt a gut sense about it. And what it enabled me to do, being in this circle with women, enabled me to feel that, no, it's not okay for me to just accept that I'm not going to have sex for the rest of my life. No, I have needs in my body. And actually my body was showing me through chronic symptoms that I needed to change. And you use the language of the wolf earlier, and it did feel like I had a wolf pack of women around me, because I was living in Seattle at the time. So leaving this man meant leaving Seattle, leaving my job because we worked together in a business, and leaving this relationship. And actually being part of this wolf pack was what gave me the courage to say, I want something more in my life. I want to feel healthier. I want to feel sexually alive. And I did it. I took the leap. I took the leap halfway through initiation. And that was 4 or 5 years ago now. And it's, I can see how it's a catalyst for so much change, and also my capacity to be following my calling now in my life, which I couldn't do there in that shut down place that I was in. So I've experienced it firsthand, how just simply being in circle with other women, and the fact that it's at Earth Heart, Earth Heart is such a beautiful place.
And I remember that moment. I remember you sharing in the circle. It's okay to say this. I remember.
I don't know what you're going to say, but let's go for it anyway.
I'm not going to say anything. I just remember you sharing that moment in the circle where you were crying, and you were saying, I know I need to leave, but I can't, I just, and we were sort of saying, oh, well, maybe you could try this, we were sort of, you're like, I can't. And then I remember we just were there going, we hear you, we get it, and we just kind of gave you that space. And nothing more really, I don't think, was said about it. And then the next thing, you were like, I've done it. It's like you came back, whatever it was, a few weeks later, and you'd done it. And it was just amazing. Yeah.
And it was as simple as knowing that I could text some of the other women and they'd say, we've got your back. That's as simple as it was. It's amazing. And I know you wanted to share another couple of stories, or a story from...
Yeah, well, we've probably got time for one, haven't we? I was the one that came to me actually the other day, because we were sitting around the fire on the land here with a few friends, with my own women's group, and I remembered this woman, and she'd come, and she'd never done anything like this before. It was all really new to her. And I've asked her if I had permission to tell this story. And she'd come out of a very abusive relationship. She'd been out of it about 6 months, but she was absolutely shattered. I mean, she was kind of a shell of a woman. That's how she described herself. She was just completely lost and hurt and traumatized. And she came and she sat around the fire, and we'd sort of sit around the fire in the evening and sing songs and just kind of eat food and maybe share stories, and then sometimes we'll have like a time for women to share, pass like a talking object round. And night had come, and it was a beautiful night, I remember, because there's no light pollution here, so it's really, really bright, the stars, and it was really still, and we were all sitting there, and there was just this sort of quietness that descended, and we were all kind of looking at the fire and looking at the stars and eating a bit of chocolate, I think, was usually going on. And then we passed the stick around, and each woman was just invited, how you doing right now, what's happening, how you feeling. And then came to this woman, and she picked up the stick. She said, oh, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I don't know how this works. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I just said, there's nothing that you have to do. It's just a space if you want it. And she's like, I don't know. I can't say. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. And we just sat there with her and said, it's okay. You don't have to say anything. We'll just be with the fire. And after about a minute or two, she just started speaking, and she said something about, oh, well, I've just come out of a relationship. And then this river came, and we were there for about half an hour with her, and the whole thing just flowed. It was really, really just so moving to hear her speak. And and each time there was a silence and a pause, we thought, oh, that's it. And then this next like river just flowed, and and nobody said anything. We didn't try to fix her. We didn't kind of interrupt or sort of anything. And we got to the end, and because she'd been a little bit with her head down, like she was sort of talking every now and again, she'd sort of look up, but she was looking at the fire. And then she looked up, and there was just these tears running down her face, and there was tears around all of us, because her story, everyone could relate to her story a little bit in some way. And she was so surprised to see that we were all crying. And she just sort of sat there, and she's like, I've never been listened to like that before. And then she just cried some more, and it was almost like nothing needed to happen other than that. And then we just carried on, and gave her some chocolate, and and I could feel her whole system just relax, just in the simple act of being heard, and nothing more needed to happen at that point. But she arrived in the circle at that moment, and she let us in. And in that moment, it's like, I think what touched the women is that not only did she do a deep piece of work for herself, but she did something in the collective field about taking the risk to let women in to a place that she felt very ashamed of, because she felt like it was all her fault, and got that mirror, that empathy, that recognition, like, we totally get what you're saying, we really are with you. And she'd lived in such isolation that she just imagined that the women would judge her. And the teaching was so powerful, just in the experience, without me going, here are the teachings, it was all there, and the fire held us all. This is an example of how nature is holding us all the time. These elements are holding us. We work with the elements a lot because they're there as a support to us. And the fire that night was an absolute support to us.
And they're always there.
And they're always there.
Ever-present allies, earth under our feet, sky above our head. Yeah. Let's transition into having an embodied experience of deep listening to ourselves, and have you guide us in a journey for around 10 minutes or so.
Okay, yeah, no, that's great. I'm happy to do a drum journey. And I thought what would be nice is to do, this is a shamanic practice for women, and it's womb divination. So as I was kind of referencing a little bit earlier, that our wombs are our wisdom fountain. They're our wisdom spring. And, it's great to read books and all that stuff. But actually, we've got it all in here. And sitting in here is our wise woman, our essential self, the one that isn't uprooted, the one that isn't broken, the one that still can get that connection and that wisdom through. So I want to offer a little drum journey that we can meet her, and we're going to ask her a question, and we're going to ask her a question about what is it that's in the way of me really fully being the woman that I know I am. So we're going to take the journey, and we'll come out the other side, and then we'll see where we're at.
But before we begin, can I ask a question? Will there be some time to write afterwards? Do we want to get journals and pens, or is this more a process of being with?
How are we doing for time?
Let's do being with the process in the moment, and we can, if people want to share, then we can share in the chat box. Yeah, let's do that. So we're ready to go.
I think, because otherwise we're all going to go and get the journals and pens, and we'll
yeah.
La. So this is just like a little portal for you to touch something and see what's there. So let's just take a moment. I need to take a moment, shift into that other space. So I'm going to play the drum, which sometimes can sound a little odd through the form of Zoom. But this beat of the drum helps our minds to shift into a different state of consciousness. So there is a purpose there. And sometimes women go, oh, the drum's really annoying, it stopped me concentrating. But if you can let the beat actually take you into a different place, it can help. So all you need to do is just find a way to sit comfortably or lie down, just rest your head back, close your eyes. And I would invite you to just put your hands on your area where your womb is, just on your hara, your belly, just below your belly button, your ovaries, your sex. And just kind of give a little hello to her and just welcome her, even if that's something that you've never considered before. And maybe you're doing it, but you don't really feel anything. That's absolutely fine. Just closing your eyes, just bringing your awareness inside yourself. And imagine we're going to take a journey into your womb space. We're going to journey inside your womb, your cosmic womb space. This womb space in us connects us to the entire universe, to the entire cosmos. So imagining you're standing in front of a door, and this door is the entranceway to your universe, to the inner landscape of your womb. And it's a place of holy, holy space. And when you're ready, in a moment, I'm going to invite you to open the door and step through. And on the other side of this door is a passageway that's going deep into the earth, slowly downwards and downwards. There won't be any light to guide your way. You will be following your intuition and your inner sensing. So when you're ready, opening the door, stepping through, closing it behind you, and beginning to make your way along this passage, this dark passage surrounded by earth and tree roots and rocks. And this passage is slowly descending down into the earth, using your hands and your feet in a kinesthetic sense as you move down along this passage, deeper and deeper into the earth. Deeper and deeper. As you smell the soil, you feel the roots and the stones under your feet, in the palms of your hands. Down and down and down, descending into the earth, into the great womb. And ahead of you in the distance, you can just see the flicker of an orange light as it dances on the walls of this passage, making your way to this light. And ahead of you, you can see another door, as this light just comes through the cracks around the edges of the door. And standing at the door are two beings, and they are your guardians of your holy, holy inner womb space, place where your wise, essential self lives. And you stand at the door, and they acknowledge you, and they know you have come to visit your wise woman. And they open the door for you and invite you to step through. And you enter a cave, a space, this inner sacred chamber. And in the middle is a fire, sheepskins around it, and your wise woman is sitting there by the fire. Notice her, what's she wearing, what she looks like, what's her quality of being. Making your way over to her, she invites you to sit with her on the sheepskins by the fire. She takes your hands in hers, and she looks deep into your eyes. She sees you. She sees you. She has always seen you. She has always been here. She has journeyed with you through your life. She knows everything about you and your life and your fears. She sees your essence. And you're going to ask her a question. And the question is, what is in front of me right now that prevents me from being the woman I really am? What is in front of me? What obstructs me? Maybe it's a fear I have, a belief I have, a way I am, something I'm doing in my life. Who knows? Could be anything. What is in the way of me being who I truly am as a woman in my life? My life is a joy, empowered, connected, wild and alive. And just be open to her wisdom. And she may speak to you in words. She may speak to you in images or pictures or sounds or song or poetry. Just be open to what she brings you. Even though it's only a short amount of time, just seeing what it is. If she's brought you something, a reflection, and maybe you don't understand what she's brought you, that's okay. Maybe nothing came, and that's okay. Maybe your mind is questioning what came, thinking you just made it up. And just be open to trusting what you were shown. she signals to you that it's time to leave. And she lets you know that you can come here anytime to visit her. She hands you a sacred object. This object is somehow there to support you in what it is she has shown you. You take the object, you thank her for her wisdom, and you make your way once again to the door. Opening the door, stepping through once again, closing it behind you, acknowledging the two beings, the guardians, thanking them. And once again, making your way back along the dark passage, this time ascending upwards, feeling your way with your hands and your feet and your kinesthetic sense. All the way along the passage, up and up you journey, up and up, feeling the roots of the trees and the stones, the smell of the soil and the earth. And you come to the door through which you first stepped. You can see the light shining through the cracks. When you're ready, once again, opening the door, stepping through, closing it behind you, and bringing yourself once again back to the space where you are sitting, in your home, on the land, wherever you are. Feeling your body, your physical body, taking a breath. Thank you. Your womb space, this connection, whatever it was, and maybe nothing came, and that's okay. That is very, very common for first journeys. And maybe something really strong came, and you want to write that down, and you've got a pen and pad next to you, great. If not, don't worry, just trust.
Thank you. Let's all take some breaths together.
That was fast track. That was wise woman on call.
Yeah. Hotline. Wow. So yeah, if you can keep part of you with what you received then, and part of you slowly bringing yourself back to this circle. And if there is something that you received, some wisdom that you received, or perhaps the gift that you received at the end of the journey, if you'd like to share that and have that be witnessed by the women that are here, you could type that into our chat box that we have here on Zoom. Mm-hmm. I just got given the best red dress ever.
Wow.
what I was shown was dancing, and it was the kind of dancing that I did this weekend at a wedding, where I was dancing with my bare feet on the earth under the trees with great music, and I had this gorgeous red dress swirling. I'm like, I need to find this dress. Thank you, Jules. That was magnificent. So yeah, if anyone would like to share them, we can read those out so they can be witnessed by the circle. And what I'm with after that is this real sense of what can happen when we're together in a field. And it would be lovely to hear you speak about that, Jules, actually, what, the new possibilities that can be born when we simply get together to take experiences like this.
Mm, mm. I mean, what I'm actually with, as you say that, when you were speaking about your own journey and your wolf pack, is, you know, because so often we go on a course or a training and we think, right, okay, the learning or the discovery is while the course is running. And what the reason that I called initiation is because it feels like it's the springboard actually to living the rest of your life from a different paradigm, and having a circle of women in your life who are completely, you know, on the same track. They've been through the same experience. We know each other so deeply. We've got these same tools that we've been given to navigate difficulties and conflict and hurts and so on. And to just, like, how different our lives would look knowing that we've got this circle of women who are potentially friends for the rest of our lives if we want it. You know, that's such a rare thing in our culture. It's like it takes us back. I often talk about the village, you know, and the way we lived once, and that the village, we all belonged to a village at some point. We belonged to a tribe, and we belonged to a piece of land, and we lived on that land. We were birthed on that land, and we knew when we were born and we were welcomed by that village that we had a place we belonged, like a sense of belonging. I belong here. I have a place here. I don't have to feel apologetic for being here or know if I'm welcome. How many of us feel like we're not welcome? You know, and that we're going to be rejected and judged and nobody wants me here in this gang, you know, all of that. And this village, it's like what sits behind us is knowing that at least 8 generations behind us were also birthed in this village, on this land, that the elders are there, they've got the wisdom, they're holding us. And even if we leave the village and go on a quest for years, in our psyche, we know the village is there. We know the land is there, and there's something about that that holds us. And what I've seen happen with these circles of women is they kind of, I mean, it's not the true village, obviously, because we don't live like that at the moment, but it holds a place in our psyche that gives us the feeling of that village, of that indigenous sense of belonging, of, you know, the women become our land. It's like they're my land, they're my ground, they're my holding. I belong here. I have a place in this circle. I don't have to wonder all the time, have I got a place here? I mean, sure, those wounds come up and they surface, but you know, there's something about that I feel is, if we all had that, it's so transformational. So initiation really is a springboard to creating a sustainable way of living. That means that as women, we can continue to resource ourselves and be in the world. And I know it's easy to say it's life-changing, but I mean, if I had a dragon's wing for every time a woman said to me, literally, initiation changed my life, you know, I'd have sackfuls of dragon's wings. I'd be weaving cloaks out of them.
Well, that would be an awesome cloak. Let's take the next 5 minutes to talk about initiation, you know, the practicalities, how it unfolds, what it is, and then we'll go into the Q&A time, and I'll also start sharing some of the beautiful sharings that are coming in as well. So yeah, how does it work? I know it happens over 13 moons.
Yeah, so it happens over 13 moons, and so it's the same group of women journeying together, and we keep coming back. So we'll meet every sort of 4 to 6 weeks for a period of 5 days. You're completely immersed in Earth Heart, in the nature that's here. You know, we stay here together, we're fed, we're held, we've got beautiful spaces to be in. And then in between times, we get on Zoom calls like this, so that we can carry on sharing, and there are practices that you get given, so that the work isn't only happening while we're together on those 5-day modules. That the integration of, well, it's all very well doing this amazing stuff in this room right now, but how do I make this relevant to my life? So I'm all about the kind of, anyone who knows me, who's worked with me, knows I'm really down to earth, you know, and it's how do I bring this back to my relationship, to my family, to the office that I work in, and actually make this applicable to my life. So that's the kind of form of it. And what was the other thing you were asked?
yeah, just how does it unfold? How many meetings are there in person?
There are 6 gatherings altogether. Each one is 5 days. And, in 5 days, you can't hold your breath for 5 days. It's like, it's long enough that we can go deep without it feeling like a roller coaster, that there's spaciousness, there's breadth, there's time to sit around the fire and contemplate, there's time to go for walks and regenerate ourselves, because we are doing really, really deep work.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who has worked with me knows that I don't splash around the shallow end. I want for every woman nothing less than absolute full empowerment and full launching of herself into the world, and I'll get behind, it's like I'll get behind any woman who wants to do that and support her in that. And we have an incredible team that, we're best friends, and, we love working together. I mean, it's really my joy to be doing this, and it's my joy to be at Earth Heart. Earth Heart, I didn't get Earth Heart for myself. It needs the women to come. And the land, it just, every time women come, I can feel the land just getting richer. It's almost like the soil gets richer or something.
And every time I come, new amazing things have popped up. Like the Earth Lodge is looking so amazing. If you go on the Facebook page for Jewels at Earth Heart, you can see this incredible Earth Lodge, which is
beautiful ceremonies.
Beautiful. And so I know it fills up every year quite quickly, doesn't it? So there's the next one is coming.
So it always begins sort of around the springtime, and then it runs 13 moons. So the next one begins beginning of February. Great. And then it'll run through to the following February.
Great. And in terms of the payment, how much is the payment, and is there a payment plan?
Yeah, we set up a payment plan. I mean, the reason that we always do this kind of call so far ahead is because, it is a big commitment and an investment in your time and resources. And, we're so in the habit of always doing things last minute. Oh, yes, I must kind of, oh, yeah, I've been thinking about that. But, the call to women is to, this is an aspect of self-care. Like, so many women will say, oh, I couldn't afford that, or I have other things that I need to prioritize. And it's like, as women, we are holding so much in our life. We're holding so many people, and we're holding so many things, yet we don't consider what are the things that are holding me to be able to hold those things. So in that way, or we feel guilty about spending money on ourselves, and what I want to say to that is, this investment, you are so worth this investment, because what it'll give you in terms of your own resources, just for yourself, for your life to be magnificent, as well as how it will resource you to be able to navigate all the other stuff you're navigating in your life. So I just want to challenge the story that we have around, I can't give that to myself. I can't, invest in myself. I would feel guilty. I would feel bad, all of that kind of stuff. It's just like, blast it out the water and give this to yourself.
Yeah.
Really give it to yourself.
Yeah. And so how can we find out more? It's on.
So yes, if you go to Sophie, we'll put a link in the chat box there. You can link straight to the initiation page, and there it all tells you a little bit about the practicals. It gives you all the dates. It gives you the costing, and then how we stay, how it all works with the accommodation. So, and any questions, I have an amazing sister called Catherine, who, without her, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. She will, be able to communicate with you, let you know about all the ins and outs of everything, all the practicals and the logisticals.
And look, speak of the devil, but speak of the goddess. She has put in the link there, jewelswingfield.com/event/initiation into the sacred feminine. Perfect. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Jules. Oh, I wish I could do it again. I'm excited for anyone that joins.
Well, we have had women do it more than once.
Oh, I'll be back.
Yeah. And then, of course, leading on from that is the follow-on year-long trainings in facilitation and leadership.
Battery 90%. Connected to Galaxy A52017 and Charlotte's iMac.
We're hearing someone's download. Oh, Zoom.
Have we got
There
time
we go.
for any?
We do. We have got time for questions. Like, Jules, do you have another 5 minutes?
Okay, well, I'd love to hear some of if anyone got anything from the drum journeys.
I will. I'll read those, and if there are any questions that come in the meantime. So Carmen says, I became her singing and dancing on the fire, and then she gave me a pipe to spread the word for peace.
Wow, beautiful.
Beautiful.
Wow.
It's gorgeous, Carmen. Kim says, I was given a lantern with a lighted candle, but on my journey back, I kept my eyes closed, using my sense of touch to guide me, safe in the knowledge that the candlelight was there if I needed.
Wow, beautiful. Beautiful.
Such trust.
Yeah.
Shanti says, what I heard was what is preventing me from living in my fullness is giving my power away. Resistance to feelings, painful feelings, fear and guilt. Thank you, dear Jules, for this beautiful journey. With love to you all, from Shanti. Shanti.
I'm sure what Shanti's just said there, I mean, that is such a strong thread for us as women. Like, you know, the courage to feel all the feelings that are in us that have been bottled up for so long, and that we get told by society, like, feelings are bad, feelings are wrong, they won't get you anywhere, they'll just take you somewhere awful. And then we fall into depression, because depression is like the not feeling the feelings. As Frances Weller so beautifully puts, it's like depression is the soul's refusal to take one more step until we meet what is asking to be met in us. And feeling feelings on our own is overwhelming and scary. That's why it's another reason for the circle. You know, we can manage it when we've got a circle around us.
Yeah. And that claiming back of the power rather than giving the power away is so much easier when we've got other women's hands at our back.
Totally.
So this is from Smiling Tani. She gave me a stone in the shape of a heart. It felt warm and heavy, like a treasure to keep me safe and remind me of the love I have to give. Thank you for this journey. It reminded me again of what's important in life. Beautiful.
What's important in life. You see, even though we just took 10 minutes to go inside, it's like our souls that get replenished.
And actually this recording is going to be up on the initiation page, so actually women could come back and do the journey again anytime. This is from Amelie. I was told that the only thing preventing me from living my full potential are my own self-doubts and self-limiting beliefs. I just need to trust and let myself be open and free. When I opened my eyes, again, I saw a tiny black spider right above me, a symbol of creativity.
Oh, spider energy. Very good. Calling in spider energy. And yeah, what she's saying about limiting self-belief. So a core aspect of the training is looking at what I call our soul core, you know, the kind of wounded core beliefs that we carry, that we've been given. And we do a beautiful ceremony around getting clarity about what they are, and then a really good tool for which involves crafting and making and creating, in how to actually work with those limiting beliefs in an ongoing daily way. So when they pop up in your daily life, you've got a way to actually be able to, you know, hold that belief and not get sort of pulled under in the riptide of that belief.
Yes. Shanti says, I was given a feather to keep me close to my beloved daughter, Isabel, who I haven't had contact with for 15 months. She's 16.
Wow. I've got a daughter, and I really can feel what that would be like. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, maybe, you could take the journey again and actually ask the woman what you can do just to be with that and to maybe support her. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Shanti. Okay, one more from Debs. I saw that the thing holding me back is the fear of being seen to be not enough. I haven't been able to unwrap my gift yet. Exciting.
Yeah, not enough. Oh my goodness me. It's like we've got that tattooed across our foreheads. I'm not enough. I don't matter. I'm not enough. And yeah, so it's back to the limiting beliefs. And it's a bit of a passion of mine to work with these limiting beliefs. And over 20 years, I've just created this way of doing that is just uplifting and empowering, actually. So yeah, I love it. Bring me your limiting beliefs, we'll smash them.
We'll gently tend to them.
I don't mean to smash them in that way, but yeah.
Thank you, Jules. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you'd like to share with us, anything else before we wrap up the session?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm really touched by the little messages that have come in from the journeys. It's always really inspiring to hear those. And I guess, it's like there's so much judgment in the spiritual movement, or whatever we want to call it, and there's such a tendency, like the shadow of it is to spiritual bypass, what I call spiritual bypassing, or thrill seeking. And actually, what's been pointed to here is a grounded, embodied, earth-based way of us being in our lives as women that integrates all of those different aspects. That doesn't mean we have to leave our life, and that doesn't mean we're just finding a clever way to check out. This is about really coming deeply in and learning to really love ourselves. Oh my God. I mean, what if we really loved ourselves? What if we liked ourselves? What if we could do that? Changes everything.
What a world that would be.
Well,
thank you.
At a time.
Yes. One moment at a time. Thank you, Jules, so much. And thank you to each and every one of you who's helped to create this circle here today. If you whether you choose to step in and join initiation or not, I hope that this session has given you some of that sweet permission to take care of yourself for the benefit of you, for your community, for your family, for the world, for the natural world too.
So come to the website, go and have a look. Any questions you've got, just ping us over an email or message on Facebook. And yeah, love to chat and find out how I can help.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jules.
Bye.
Have a beautiful afternoon, everyone. Bye. Bye.